Welcome, travelers. We're aware that your journey was difficult, but prepare to have your questions answered, for you have been granted an audience with the Masters of Modern.
And welcome back to Masters of Modern. I'm your host, Alex Kessler, here with my co-host, Ben Bateman.
What's up, everybody? We're back. It's part 2 of the set review. We're hyped. We're hyped. This is a great set. There's so much to talk about. And here we are, sitting in front of
cycle in the NPR voice sometimes.
Yeah, look at all these cool cards behind us.
I know. So, actually, speaking of that, a little bit of advertising. So this will be part 2 of hopefully a 3-part set review for Modern Horizons. We also will be releasing our preview episode on the week after this is all done.
24th, I think,
24th, of June. So
seems very quickly for it.
So it's interesting that we're going War of the Spark right into Modern Horizons, right into what is it, M20. And then that'll pretty much cycle right into Commander. And I think part of it for the summer is because they've been designing core sets to not be for, more like core sets used to be, where they're kind of dead products, where they're really for beginner players. They're not for kind of enfranchised drafter. The draft format's not supposed to be good. And so they're trying to make it so that whatever this Modern Horizon set releases to be more of the people that want to draft during the summer set. And then Commander to follow that up, though I think Commander should be at the end of the year.
I mean, also, this is buoyed by the fact that War of the Spark was such an epic set that I think normally...
but Dominaria was an epic set. And
true. Yeah.
Amonkhet was an epic block, and so was Shadows over Innistrad.
I'm starting to wonder if... Because, for a long time, the third set in a block was typically their worst selling set of a given block. Like Future Sight sold the worst. And not even that. It's just it doesn't sell very well. And I wonder if it's partially they talked a lot about they moved away from 3-set blocks because of mechanic fatigue. By the time you got to the third set, the mechanics had already been sort of done to death. So maybe part of it is they're now we're just going to make the spring, the third set, so bonkers bananas that it gets people hyped so that they don't feel a third set on Ravnica.
Well, it's going to be interesting because I think, is this year the first year we're going to get the 3 sets separately where it's actually 3 separate sets? Because Dominaria followed a block, right? There was a block before that. It was Ixalan block was a block.
Right. Correct.
So then it was Dominaria and then right into Ravnica. So this year will be the first year where it's 3 separate sets. So I'm really interested to see what Winter looks like. Yeah. We haven't really gotten a Winter standalone set. Yes, the Ravnica Allegiance set was that, but that was also kind of just another Ravnica block. So it's the same plane. So I'm definitely interested to see what happens there. I do think... One of the issues I think is just Commander used to come out right before Christmas and it was great. And because it was a great Christmas gift to get yourself, it was hyped in a set, a time period that there's not a lot of content coming out. But then they moved it back to the summer and now summers are just there's so much content.
Well, I mean, in the old days, I was thinking about this the other day, right? I remember, and it has to have now been 5-6 years ago that we were getting the first Plane Chase set and Arch Enemy. That's all 6-7 years ago probably. Yep. Right, those sets, the supplemental sets that would come out back then, they didn't feel like they were exciting releases in the same way. They were cool, don't get me wrong. People would play Arch Enemy at your local store, and that was the thing. When a master set, which have so many of, and Modern Horizons, and these large sets, and Commander product, and core sets are back, and all of the new sets now being large sets, every single product that comes out feels like it's a massive, major release.
Well, and part of that is Wizards is also going after different demographics, right? There is a casual drafter demographic. There is a new player core set demographic, and there's a need for core sets for standard, and so standard players. There's a Commander player demographic that doesn't touch any of those 2 formats, and there's a ton of players. An example is all the modern players calling Modern Horizons
Commander
Horizons or Commander Matters, which is obviously not true, as Hogak got 10 decks out of the top 32 of the last Modern tournament. For individual players, these are all meant to kind of help different player groups. For content creators or people that care about all the formats, it's so much content coming out all over the summer.
Yeah, we will finish our set review and immediately go into a preview of a new set. And just we barely have room anymore for episodes that are, wait a minute, when's our live episode going to be? We're going to be live at Grand Prix Seattle at Magic Fest Seattle.
Yeah, in the middle of all this.
That's going to be in the middle of all this. That'll be right the same week as our 3rd-part set review. We're trying to figure out the content that we're going to be doing at that show right now, actually. But if you're going to be there, be sure to go because
check it out.
It's going to be really, really awesome and fun.
So I realize why they moved Commander, because like now that obviously I have a toy company, we're doing that kind of distribution process, and Commander is a fall product, but retailers like fall products to all kind of come out till September and then have the whole season of fall to kind of come out, and then Commander products coming right before Christmas truncates that window of shopping. But from the Magic community's perspective, that's a lot of eyeballs really early on that you kind of just move on to the next thing and greater thing after that's done. Or
you don't even get to
buy it already.
You don't even get to ingest it all the way.
Right.
Like we have. I mean, by the time I won't even really have hardly gotten to play Modern Horizons by the time we start talking M20, which is crazy.
And then combined with it, that Modern Horizons has this higher price point. I don't know if I will ever get to draft Modern Horizons before people have moved on to the more affordable next draft set that comes out.
I'm going to buy boxes and you're invited to the draft. So
thank God. Because that was the problem I had with Conspiracy 2. It came out, and 3 weeks later, Kaladesh came out.
Right.
And, Conspiracy 2 was that casual draft thing. So even entrenched standard players, which is a lot of drafters, they didn't want to spend their money on a set they couldn't play.
Right. So I think the biggest mistake here is the cost of Modern Horizons packs. I don't think this set warranted that higher cost. I understand why they did it. I think that's my biggest complaint of the set in total, and that
its value feels like a standard set.
Right. So like, why is this so much more expensive than Battle Bond, or why is this so much more expensive than Conspiracy? And I kind of get what their reasoning was. At least this is as their first toe in the water. But and they want to print a lot of power, I guess, is what their thought was going to be. But I don't want stores to start doing M10 drafts over this because it's more affordable. I'd rather draft M20 because that draft format's going to be miserable. I did not enjoy the draft format of Nub 19. It's not miserable, but it's
it's never as fun.
This draft format, from all of experiences so far, is really great.
It's amazing. We are harping a lot on sort of the release schedule and everything, and I think I want to make sure that we cover one or two quick pieces of news and have time to get into this because there's so much to talk about.
The big news was the Chandra cards being released.
From M20.
So that's why this is all
three versions of Chandra. The 3-mana Chandra I thought was pretty sweet, actually.
The one that gives all other character or other planeswalkers +1 loyalty when it ticks up.
Yeah, and it has the flashback.
Snapcaster mages. Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I really like it.
We will.
I like that they've been putting more of Snapcaster Mage's abilities into red where it belongs, and it's fine in red. It's just blue is where it becomes a little too overpowered.
I didn't realiage that was a 3-mana cost one.
It's really good. The 6-mana one is cool, but it's 6-mana Planeswalker, and then the 4-mana one is strong. They're all very solid Planeswalkers. It's funny, the one of them, maybe it was the 3-mana or maybe it was the 4-mana, felt like the new Planeswalker design. It felt like now we've had War of the Spark. Now I can understand reading Planeswalkers that don't all need to feel so splashy.
Right. One of the things that War of the Spark did, and maybe we don't get too many static abilities because I know people. Yeah. I think that many static abilities all at once is a lot. I think in the future they'll use them intermittently. But I think they now know how to make uncommons and common Planeswalkers and are fine doing so. And I think that's really good for the game in general. Is they can now make the Planeswalkers that come in the deck boxes that for beginners, rare ones. So you kind of understand that. So new hotness. Obviously, Hogak Shenanigans is now.
Hogak is, by the way, one of the cards they printed with Delve. Oh, really? It showed up and made waves at a tournament.
And Convoke.
Whoever saw that coming? It said Delve on it.
You can't cast it from your hand, though. So how do you play it?
Yeah, you can.
No, you can't.
You can.
Cast from your hand.
You are wrong.
No, you just you can't use mana.
You cannot use mana
to play it. Okay.
But you can most certainly on turn 2 tap your Stitcher's Apprentice and your Carrion Feeder and delve 5 cards away and cast him out of your hand.
Got it.
He's very powerful. I mean, look, it's cool. This is
Stand corrected.
This card is the new hotness.
Hack on.
Got it. I thought he was hack on.
This card is the new hotness. It made waves at this last tournament.
Top 10. Yeah, well, not just. All of the modern tournaments this weekend, Hogak was the big standout thing. 10 out of the top 32 of the modern challenge.
How's Neoform doing?
I think 2 of the top 8 of the other one. Neoform's doing well too. It definitely was shown up. Not as much. It definitely has fallen by the wayside a little bit. Narset puzzle box decks are everywhere.
Yeah.
Both blue-red control decks and blue-white ones. Esper Death Shadow is also that would be probably the 3 big new deck kind of concepts.
How does the Esper Death Shadow deck?
So it's taking advantage of the white, the mythic from the last set, the Ranger Captain of Eos.
Sick.
And it's taking advantage of Unearth, which we'll talk about a little bit over the set review.
Sweet.
And it's taking advantage of playing Force Negation main 2 to 4. Just and 3 mana Teferi. So it can kind of lock your opponent out with Unearth, New Teferi, and Ranger Captain of Eos, making it so they just can't cast spells over the creatures, and then it has a bunch of removal spell to kill those creatures.
So here's a question for you.
Yeah.
What dollar amount does Force of Negation settle into after we're 3 months past the set being open?
I have no idea. It's really hard with this set because it's like response has been weirdly medium because because it's expensive, but the value isn't really there. So people are a little weird on it.
They don't want to open it.
We don't know what the print runs are going to be. There's so much different valuable cards in this set that should lower the overall price of individual cards. Like the cards that become way too expensive are often in sets that have no other value, right?
Right.
Because that's the only card, so you become like that's what World Wake was, right? Before years passed and the manlands became more expensive.
Yeah, all became expensive.
It was just Jace was the only card that was worth any money in this set. But Stoneforge was worth $3, $5.
Okay, sure.
Because Jace was $100 and Stoneforge was a rare, so people are just opening boxes to play the Jace lottery, which put all of the other cards heavily into the market.
Right.
And so no card really can be more than expensive than a box, or the total value of cards you could open in a box can't be more expensive than the cost of a box, because otherwise stores will just start opening boxes because then it becomes worth it to just open packs.
I think there being a rare printed into a new set that is only going to be open for one summer that is going to see 2 to 4 copies in main decks and 2 to 4 copies in sideboards basically forever means that card is pretty much never going down unless they jam it into another set and just overprint the crap out of it. That card feels like
I agree.
Minimum $24, $25.
I guess my point is I don't know what the top end of it is.
Okay.
Like this could be $100 card by next year.
This could be like the new Snapcaster.
Except for the fact that every one of these lands are going to be that expensive. Every one of these like weird oddball, like there's half of these oddball cards that we're going to go through are all going to be at some point a staple if they print the right cards around them, or they're just already a staple inventing a new deck. See Hogak.
So let's jump into a quick word about where you can find us and all the different things coming up right now. What's up, guys? Masters of Modern here. I'm Ben Bateman.
I'm Alex Kessler.
And we've got a couple quick shout-outs for you guys that we wanted to remind you of on this episode. The first one is Twitter, at the MMCast. We've had a Twitter for years. It's a great place to interact with us. We post exclusive images of our brand new spoiler cards, all kinds of cool stuff. Check it out at the MMCast. It is a great way to support the show. Kess, where can the folks find you personally?
I'm at Kess Wiley.
You guys can find me at Ben Bateman Media. The second thing is we have a YouTube. You may be watching this right now, honestly. You might be listening to it. But one of the big pushes for us in 2019 is to build this YouTube channel. We want to get more eyes, more ears, bigger guests, better episodes, higher production quality. We even hired a producer right now, so you might even see the camera angles changing. Subscribe, like, comment. It's going really well so far, and honestly, if you guys support it, even if you're an audio listener already, it's a huge thing you can do to help us grow this. The third thing, and maybe the most important thing for our long-term health, is patreon.com/theMMCast. Guys, this year is going to have a ton of cool rewards for you. We really want to make the Patreon feel special, and it's a great way to help us grow. Our ability to hire the producer, to get new gear, to do anything cool in the future is going to be dependent on our ability to actually pay for it.
Well, and the producer will help us kind of make sure we stay on stuff on Patreon, so it'll be a really thriving community.
Yeah. Now, the last thing I want to talk to you guys about is the Command Zone. Jimmy Wong, Josh Lee Kwai, these guys helped us start this thing. Collected.company is where you can find their stuff. They're seriously the most professional Magic people in the world, not named Ben and Alex.
Yeah, they make awesome content every week, Commander Focus. They do game nights. They do, the Command Zone is obviously the podcast, the sister podcast of the MMCast. Check them out, Collected.company. It's the same place you can find our episodes every week as well.
And the last thing is if you guys want to check out a great community, check out the Facebook group, the Masters of Modern. There's a ton of people in there. It's very interactive. There are constantly threads about new decks, new conversations. It's very active. Check it out. That's Facebook, the official Masters of Modern group. And otherwise, let's get back to the show.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
So we are back, and
it's crazy. You can find us in so many places.
In so many cool places. Couple things here to shout out. The first one, I am going to start doing streams on this channel, on this YouTube channel. So we talked about in just now. You can subscribe to it.
There's a bell. Hit the bell. Hit the like. All of the buttons below us help.
So I've been talking for a long time
about... Except the thumb down. Don't
press the thumb down.
I've been talking about ideas for a long time for content that I want to do, streaming and stuff like that. A lot of it's never happened. It's a question of time. I have decided I'm going to start doing a stream once a week on this channel. I don't know if it's going to necessarily just be sitting right here. I might do it from home, but Modern Horizons has given me so many cool ideas of decks that I want to try building and just brews that I want to come up with. I want to crunch the list, and then I want to just stream for an hour and talk to you guys about it. So stay tuned. If you see a live notification for the YouTube channel, that's probably going to be me sitting there just talking to you guys about a super, super fun deck idea that I'm probably going to try to play at a local FNM, and that's going to be a new thing I'm going to be doing. So look out for that.
Well, and if you guys remember 10 Minutes of Magic, which you used to do every day, or 10 minutes of Modern. It's kind of the next step in the spirit of that, where it's going to be one video a week, but it's going to be a live show that's on there, easy, quickly edited.
I haven't decided on the time yet, but I'm probably going to just try one out randomly one day just to see how it goes.
So make sure the bell next to the subscribe button, the bell will alert you that we're going live.
But yeah, I think we should probably just get into today's episode. We left off in the middle of Blue. We had done the White review. That was part 1. So where did we leave off in Blue?
We left off with Prohibit.
So I wanted to do the Force cycle now. So, bringing it up.
Let's do the other forces first, because Force Negation is the obvious, most interesting one to talk about.
Sure.
Let's start with the worst one. The red one.
The red one.
Force of the feeling I feel when I read it.
I mean, the people really dislike this card. So, right, this is the one that makes the 2/3/1s.
It makes 2/3/1s that you must sacrifice at the beginning of your upkeep.
So I'm going to make a bold prediction.
Just bad.
This card, I'm going to say we'll see play at one point in my life in a top 8.
So the card is red, 1 for an instant. If it's not your turn, you may exile a red card from your hand rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Create 2/3/1 red elemental creature tokens with trample and haste. Sacrifice those tokens at the beginning of your next upkeep. I mean, my first thought on this is, for 3 mana to make 6 power with haste, I mean, it's not tier 1 by any means.
They're
but
not trample, right? It's just...
No, they have trample.
So how much worse is this than Ball Lightning?
I mean, but does Ball Lightning see play in Modern? No,
but this is better.
People have played those Ball Lightning Groundbreaker decks. That's a thing.
Yeah,
but that's because it was in green for Green Devotion.
Sure.
Right.
Well, but it dies immediately. I think that this is better than Ball Lightning. I'm not saying Ball Lightning sees play. I'm not saying a deck wants Ball Lightning, but if a deck were to want Ball Lightning, this is better than that card. And people have definitely tried making that card work, and a green variant of it has seen play with Devotion, but this is better with any type of sack outlet combo.
Question for you. So the premise of playing this for its force cost, for you exile a red card and you play it on their turn, it's to block. It's to have 2/3/1 blockers. That's the whole idea.
That's the only real use.
You're pitching a card and you can have 2/3/1 blockers. That's why this exists.
It's like a combat trick / removal spell that can get you value. You can kill 2 other things if they attack with 2 things.
But why does red want this as an instant? This doesn't feel like...
No, that's...
The big question a lot of people have is, why does it say the beginning of your upkeep instead of the beginning of your end step?
You can play it at the end of their turn. Right? I'm confused about the design of this card.
I think it really is supposed to be, it's sometimes an offensive burn spell when you play it for 3, but it's also sometimes I will essentially get rid of 2 cards from my hands to kill 2 of your attackers.
I think to me it feels like they wanted to make a Ball Lightning that could block on your opponent's turn. How do we make a cool Ball Lightning that blocks? I also think this is a card that they had a better card that they're getting to the end of the process and it was too good, and for whatever reason they couldn't get it to figure out a better idea, and so last minute they're like, we can either make a bad card or this is a mechanic that they're terrified of.
You don't think that the better card was just the end step version?
No, I think it was like Fire Blast or a dope or instant speed Anger of the Gods, something that was
actually really good.
Well, because remember, the Force cycle is something they're terrified of, right? There's so many times that they've printed free mechanics that have bit them in the ass, and this is they're getting late to the run. They aren't sure. They don't have the taste and capital for Modern like they do for Standard even, and they're like, we can't come up with the red card that's fair, because red has the most scalability issues, right? Like the difference between 3 and 5 damage is ginormous when it comes to a burn spell, and so there's what? Let's just make the red one bad. We know what a bad one is. This one's kind of cool. Maybe it does something unique and cool later. It's better than Ball Lightning, but it's not going to break open the format.
I guess I just really wish it was either Shunt or Double Cast. It would be cool if it was a copy target spell.
Yeah, if this was fork,
or
free
change,
fork.
Or if it was Misdirection in red.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cards I wish it was.
So this card is mediocre. Let's move on to the next one.
Force of Virtue, 2 white enchantment. If it's not your turn, all the stuff that the Force cycle has, which is if it's not your turn, you can cast it by discarding a card.
Flash.
It has flash. Creatures you control get +1/+1.
Now this card I like a lot more.
Than the internet thinks it. People are really off on this one as well.
Well, here's the thing that people forget. This is the thing that people do not remember about free cards. So you have tokens decks that exist in Modern. That's just a thing that happens. People play black-white tokens. It happens all the time. When you come out with Velocity in a deck that creates a lot of creatures and you can double the power of those creatures without using mana, it's very good. So just exiling a second copy of Lingering Souls to push lethal with this card is a thing you'll do sometimes.
Well, not even that, because remember, it's end of their turn. So you would do it flash. It's still, you would have to spend the 4 mana to play it on your turn. They all have the end of their thing. But
sure.
But something that the Force cycle does that like I think people aren't taking into consideration, and with Force of Negation you're going to see it the most, but these other cards have this potential. You can play worse cards now.
Right.
The forces all collectively let you play you can play extra 4 mana planeswalkers, or you can play 6 mana Elspeth, who like if you can get the 6 mana, literally just wins the game when you cast it in a tokens deck. But in most situations, you're like, oh, what do I do with the 6 cost spell? And you're like, oh, I can flash in for free. I can use this bad early card that's really situational to play this really good card for 0 mana to then pump my team. And that's what I mean. Like the reasonable reasons Jace, a 4-drop sorcery spell, sees play in Legacy is because Force of Will can either ditch it when you don't need it, or you don't have the mana for it, or if you need to, you can play it and then counter whatever they do to react to it. And this has similar, uses to me.
There's the possibility that this combines the things that for free add an extra toughness to something that would need it to survive something. Like there's clever and interesting things that free cards allow you to do.
It's a combat trick on your opponent's turn that lets you just make combat math impossible.
It seems.
Do you have it?
Yeah, it seems like I was thinking in spirits. There are a lot of spirits who have 3 toughness, like spell quellers and
exactly.
the Supreme Phantom. And if your opponent angers the gods or any of these red deal 3 to all, and in response you force a virtue, seems like you're gold.
Totally.
Right. Next is Force of Despair. Destroy all creatures that enter the battlefield this turn. Black 1. I think this card's
it's an instant
good. I think you would just play this as a 1-of in most Jund decks, and as in the same slot you would play Maelstrom Pulse or something else, where it just you can get people that play a bunch of creatures on their turn.
We talked about this on the Brainstorm Brewery episode we guested on, and what I said there, same thing I'll say now. Casting this, just hard casting this, is totally reasonable. You don't need this to be free. And in fact, the only times that you're going to want this to be free are where you're like, oh man, if I don't stop their big Phoenix turn that's happening right now, I'm going to lose on my turn. There are situations where you're going to need it to be free, but I think a lot of the time you're just going to cast this card and it's going to be good. You're going to 2-for-1 them.
You play a Liliana the Veil, you pass the turn, and they just play 2 creatures. And you're with this, I can just kill both of the creatures you played, making it so my Liliana the Veil will just eat every creature you play for the rest of the game. As long as you're getting 2 or more value off of this card, you just play it for free.
Imagine having this card in your hand in a deck that's a little slow, and the Elves deck comes out super hot against you, and you just are okay, I'll 2-for-1 myself at the end of your turn. I'll just wreck everything. Great. I'm down 2 cards. You're down 6. Another place this card's really good in is that this is very good against hexproof creatures. So killing a Geist of St. Traff with this card, awesome.
Or just killing any of the Boggles creatures, or if they Boggles. All right, next. And the next 2, there's debates. I'm going to go with this one. This is in order how good they are. If you haven't been keeping track, we've ranked them. Force of Vigor, 2 green. All the if not your turn, exile a green card and play it for free. Instant, destroy up to 2 target artifacts and/or enchantments.
This reminds me of the white card back from Time Spiral, Return to Dust, I think it's called. Destroys 2 artifacts and enchantments. So you have this for free in green at instant speed.
Exile, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you can already, against a lot of the decks in the format, I won a bunch of games at the last GP that I played in by casting Shatterstorm. And in a lot of cases, if Shatterstorm just said destroy 2 target artifacts, it still would have been really good. So already just to cast it does that. The fact that you could do it with no mana is bonkers.
Force of Negation. Blue 1, instant, counter target non-creature spell. If that spell is countered this way, exile instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. All of the text of the Force set. So you said before we started talking about it that this is going to be a sideboard card. Already, every single blue-white control deck is playing at least 2. There is a few playing 4. The blue-red ones are playing 2 main deck, and they're all doing very well with it. This is a main deck card. We're in a format where Planeswalkers are a card that you want to play with, and this does the game plan of I play Jace or Narset, and now I can tap out, and now you can't do anything to stop it on your turn other than play a creature. Both of those cards are good at getting creatures kind of on their own. And then the reverse end of that is, I don't have the mana to be able to get to my 3, 4, or 5 mana giant Planeswalker threats. Let me discard them when I don't need them.
And I think also just at the bare minimum, I don't mind playing this card in a blue deck where I have ways to create card advantage. So I'll take the disadvantage of countering your Thoughtseizes when you try to cast it. I go first. You don't get to take my best card. I draw more cards because I'm playing a control deck. Right. Fine. No problem.
I think people didn't really take into account how many instants and sorceries and or non-creatures their opponents are playing. The fact that it also counters Planeswalkers in a format where that's super relevant. you can stop their Karn from coming down. That's a big deal.
That's the biggest. I think probably countering a Karn is the best thing you can do with this card in the format, right?
Narset or Teferi's Puzzle Box with the Narset in play.
Teferi.
Or Teferi, any Teferi or Thoughtseize even. Like
Ad Nauseam.
There's every deck. Like
Except the Ad Nauseam
wins with Scape Shift. Like
I guess Ad Nauseam they do on
that
Europe.
Through the Breach.
Collected Company. I would counter with the
Goryo's Vengeance.
All day.
I guess that's happening on my turn. So, but that's the other thing is like, you could just this is dissolve or not dissolve. This is
Negate.
No, it's
Dissipate.
Syncopate does it also.
Syncopate. It's one of those. Like obviously it doesn't counter creatures, but like I've played cards that in the times where it counters a non-creature spell, paying 3 mana to counter their non-creature spell and exiling it is like relevant.
It doesn't even seem like the worst to counter Faithless Looting on the front end.
No, for sure. So, all right, guys, we have spent a significant amount of time, but that was an important cycle. So we want to make sure we continue moving on here. Leave your thoughts and comments below if you think which of the forces you think are right. The ranking that we had right now was where the red one was the worst. Second worst was the white one. Third was the black. Second best was the green one. And the best was Force of Negation. Let us know what you think.
Take a victory lap on like how many people I argued with on the internet over like that this card is good and main deckable and we'll see main deck play and is going to change the format. And people disagreed, and it's seeing main deck play and winning tournaments.
All right, next up on the list.
No, we are.
If we're going by casting
all
costs.
possibilities.
Blue 1 sorcery, scry 2, then draw a card, has flashback of blue and 4. So I played in the pre-release over the weekend. You didn't, right? You didn't.
Correct. I didn't get I played on Moto.
So I played, a Jeskai deck, and it was pretty fun.
Yep.
I played a copy of this card. It felt really good. It's not super powerful. It's obviously has flashback, and all cards with flashback are better than they appear.
Yeah, I think this is a quick one, but like the conversation for me here is that Telling Time sees play, or like Telling Time blue effects have seen play, and this is, I think, better to me than any of those effects. Look at the top 3, put one in your hand, put the other 2 on your bottom. That like Storm has played that card, or like different decks have played 2 mana card filtering cards when they run out of good
Scry 2
ones.
draw is a real effect. I mean,
this is better than I think a lot of those, and you add the fact that it has flashback. Like there are decks that like being able to discard this to a Liliana of the Veil or other just ways to mill it out of your deck like gives you a little bit more value. Is something to consider. I don't think this card needs to be too much play. I think it's a little weak, but I think it's close.
Yeah,
I think they swung for the fences.
Yes, I agree. The thing about this card that I think is the coolest and most interesting is that it costing blue 1 instead of blue means that cost reducers make this card more interesting, which you mentioned Storm.
Sure.
So playing this for 1 seems sweet.
Playing one of these in Storm seems cool. Like I definitely think that's something to talk towards. Storm got a lot of new pieces, or not a lot, but some new pieces out of this set, and maybe this is one that's falling under the radar.
Yeah, it's good.
Watcher for Tomorrow, 1 in a blue. Creature, human, wizard, hideaway. This creature enters the battlefield tapped. When it does, look at the top 4 cards of your library, exile 1 face down, then put the rest on the bottom of your library. When Watcher for Tomorrow leaves the battlefield, put the exiled card in its owner's hand. It's a 2/1.
This card is sweet.
When I saw this card, like it was the first time I realized Hideaway didn't have the other half of casting it for free part of the land Hideaway land.
Oh, sure.
Like that this was an ability that like just looked at the top 4 cards and exiled it underneath the card, and like that expands us. Like I love Hideaway now. I want Hideaway on so many more cards. This is one of the mechanics that I was like, oh, you could do really cool stuff with this, and I didn't realize that.
I got really excited when I started thinking about brewing with this card. So if you like sort of look at the history of 2 mana creatures, right, the ones that can draw a card, there's a bunch of these. But this card having, first of all, 2 power, card selection, and being blinkable. The fact that it's card selection, if you can find a way to use this, like...
Yeah, it's leave the battlefield, not die. So if you blink it, you get the card into your hand.
I got started getting really excited thinking about this card. Like, just all the cards that I like trying to brew with. Like, great example of a card like Ojutai's Command. Always been a fan of that card. Always thought that card was cool. I love the idea of like playing this early, you block with it, you draw the card, then you counter a spell later. Ojutai's Command returns this thing to the battlefield. Now it's more card selection. You're in blue-white. You're probably playing like Restoration Angel or some card like that. I mean, but this card seems so dope.
And once again, he's a wizard. This set has put a bunch of value cheap wizards that make Wizard's Retort and Wizard's Lightning. I feel like a blue splash red Wizards aggro tempo deck feels like it's on the cusp of happening in Modern.
There's actually a teamer deck that did well, this Wizards deck that did well this last weekend, and I think it got like 12th or something, but it still did better than not placing. And it was playing 4. It was more red based. It was red blue. It was like heavy red though. Also, it was playing 4 of the wizard that we love from War of the Spark, the one that it attacks, you get a free spell from your graveyard.
Oh yeah,
Arcanist.
Arcanist, and it was doing a bunch of cool stuff. And I think this card could be well in that deck pretty easily. Face time. Look at me. Archmage's Charm, blue. So triple blue. Instant, choose one, counter target spell, target player draws 2 cards, gain control of target non-land permanent with converted mana cost 1 or less. My main take when I first saw this card is that I would play blue, 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 instant speed, draw 2 cards, and everything else is just gravy. And like, counter target spell is also a really good effect.
Well, yeah, I mean, so I got into a conversation not for Modern, but actually for Highlander Gauntlet with Eric about this card, and my point was like, he was like, it's not that good. I was like, think about the fact that you have a counter spell that if you don't want a counter spell, cycles to draw 2. Forget the last ability, forget anything else. It's just, you just have a counter spell that you can throw away. It cycles to draw 2 cards, not 1, but 2.
So base level, it's already started seeing play. So blue-red control decks were playing 2 copies of it in the main. It was like a split between this and Force of Negation. They're playing two of each of them. It's not as good as Cryptic Command, but at 3 mana versus 4 mana is a big difference. I mean, things to consider, you can Snapcaster Mage this. You can, like, at 5 mana, which that's one of the limitations, you have to get the 6 mana with Cryptic Command. This lets you get there. This also bridges the gap between not having Cryptic Command available and having Cryptic Command. You know, you on turn 2 have Mana Leak and Remand delaying them. You now have this card to be able to stop them on turn 3 in an efficient way. And then on turn 4, you can start Cryptic Commanding them. And if they don't go for anything on turn 3, you are up on cards.
I think the other cool thing about this card too is that the last ability, which we're kind of ignoring, there are pretty interesting things that the last ability does, right? So it's target non-land permanent converted mana cost 1 or less. So literally any token this steals, right? This steals Aether Vial. This steals
Merit Lage tokens.
What? Oh, yeah, wrong format, but
I mean, Merit Lage's Slumber may.
Oh, Merit Lage's Slumber,
yeah.
sure.
Merit Lage in the format gets like half of the creatures that are good at a burn. It gets
when you flip a creature, doesn't his mana cost become
correct?
0?
You can steal an Awoken Horror
And thing in the eyes.
Delver. Yeah.
I mean, so there's either side of Delver.
Any of the planeswalkers that flip.
Exactly. Any of those that flip, stealing Awoken Horror is a big deal in that deck. Having your own thing in the ice is really, really good.
Bunch of cards that have elves, bunch of cards that have like every deck,
Death Shadow if your life total's low enough, or just to kill the Death Shadow if you're
Black White Kaya, the 3 mana one, is seeing play just because it exiles a 1 mana or less permanent. Like this steals it. I would almost always steal over exiling a thing. I'm not talking about our new favorite zombie,
Carrion Feeder. We'll get there.
But it steals it.
It would eat itself though.
Sure, but I'd still kill it. Let's get rid of it. Bazaar Trade Mage, 2 blue, a human wizard, flying. When Bazaar Trade Mage enters the battlefield, draw 2 cards, then discard 3 cards. It's a human wizard. It's a 3/4 for 3.
And it flies.
I said flying, I think. But this card's, from a flavor perspective or a history of Magic perspective, this card is like multiple layers of cool because it's a reference to the character Aladdin. Literally has a parrot and a magic carpet, like from the Disney show, but Aladdin was also in Arabian Nights, and that's what it's kind of referencing. Bazaar of Baghdad is the ability that it has on the front end when it enters the battlefield, and it's a Dizimjin, right?
It's a
or Mahat.
Serendib Ifrit.
That's the one.
Yeah. So
body, size, and abilities.
Except for the losing a damage.
Right. So instead of it damaging you every turn, you get to Bazaar Baghdad once.
I think this card's a little under the radar. Like, I think it's better than people are giving credit for. Like 3/4 flyer for 3.
Well, let's just
every Phoenix ever played.
Let's also call just a spade here. We all know how good Restoration Angel has been in terms of just general size for as long as it has been, and it doesn't have that much to do with the blink. It has a lot more to do with the fact that it's a flash flying 3/4. You play this for 1 less mana. Now you're putting yourself down a card to get the rate, but it's not as if blue really struggles with ways to use cards in its graveyard. Like this card is really good.
This guy seems good for like a possible dredge build too, because it's 2 dredge triggers and then feed your yard 3 cards.
I've seen a ton of decks playing Magus of the Bazaar, and this seems just better most of the time.
Agreed.
Like you don't get repeated uses, but it's instant speed and it comes attached to a much more dangerous body. The fact that this also, like in a Phoenix deck, just as like your 5th creature that flies. When it enters play, it does the effect versus Magus having to wait a turn. So it's not summoning sick. Yeah.
I mean, I think you're right though about playing this alongside a Phoenix seems quite good. I just like the idea of dumping all the cards in my graveyard, and now I have another flying 3/4. And on top of that, when I bounce this with my Awoken Horror, it's going to allow me to draw and discard again later in the game. So
yeah, I think it's really cool. Force of Negation is the next card. Mirrodin Besieged, 2 and a blue enchantment. As Mirrodin Besieged enters the battlefield, choose Mirren or Phyrexian. Mirren, whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colorless mirror artifact creature token. Phyrexian, at the beginning of your end step, draw a card, then discard a card. Then, if there are 15 or more artifact cards in your graveyard, target opponent loses the game. I think this may be the easiest you win the game I've seen on a card.
15 artifacts is not much.
That is...
It's up there with Labman and Jace Wielder of Mysteries for...
Yeah. And like... Also there are decks that just like having this in your deck as a one-up will win you the game most of the time, and they draw through their deck with artifact like eggs or lantern control or...
Not to mention, if you're playing 4 copies of this in your deck, like the front side of it is just like a mini Psy. Like,
yeah.
So just give me all the eggs and things.
It's a new Saheeli. The front side is Saheeli that can't be attacked.
Yeah, but now we have
artifact spells, not.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and now you have just printed me Arkham's Astrolabe, which we'll get to later, but you've now just printed me a 1-mana artifact that when it enters the battlefield, I draw a card. So now there's another card in the format to power this. This card is gonna win games for people for sure.
I've seen a ton of lists already of people posting around. This is gonna be a card in Modern, and like it goes with the Urza decks that have been being passed around. It goes with Tezzerator decks. It goes with War Prison decks that have been around forever. It goes with... And like it's kind of a new Eggs win condition, because before Eggs had to draw their whole deck. They had to kind of create this like really difficult to put together loop now that Second Sunrise has been banned. And this kind of can slide into that spot, keep it mono blue, and allows you to just win as soon as you draw this and get 15 cards into your graveyard.
And something I like is obviously it draws comparisons to the Khans Fate Forge cycle, but those cycles, the two halves didn't have a lot of relation to one another. So if you played multiples of them, usually you were playing it because you definitely wanted the Khans half, or you definitely wanted the Dragons half. This is one where you could play 3 or 4 copies in your deck and draw it early game. You probably want that, making the mirrors. But late game, oh yeah, I'm going to start looting to get to my win condition.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can have 2 of them in play, one naming Mirren and one naming Phyrexian, just feels real solid.
And even naming 2 Phyrexian, drawing 2 cards a turn and discarding 2 cards a turn is pretty good. And then every artifact you're getting 2 mirror tokens, or is mirror tokens?
Yeah.
Mirror artifact creature tokens every time you cast a spell or artifact is also really good. So even the back end and front end and multiples is better than some of the Dragons ones were. Also, I just love the flavor of this card. It's named after the set Mirrodin Besiege. You're choosing a side. Like, it's literally the pre-release from Mirrodin Besiege.
The art is sick. It's got Jin Gataxius going hog wild.
Yeah. I think the blue one was called Monastery Sage, if I remember correctly.
Monastery Siege, yeah.
yeah, Marshall. Siege.
Classic.
And can't you say a card?
Alex, that was a throwback. All right.
Speaking of eggs like shenanigans, rebuild 2 and a blue instant, return all artifacts to their owner's hand, cycling 2.
Yeah, I mean, this is a Urza's Saga or Urza's Legacy card.
Yeah, it's brought back. I mean, it's
less powerful than that deck than Retract, because Retract cost a blue.
Wait, so the question is, Retract, Hurkyl's Recall, and this are the 3 versions of this right now in Modern, and do you need a 7th, 8th, 9th one? And depends on, is cycling better than Hurkyl's Recall, I think is really the question. Because I think Retract, if you're playing that deck, is just
the best card.
1 mana for that is so much better than the other options.
I mean, it's like, okay, so let's just say you're playing the Pure Steel Paladin deck or the Eggs, whatever, and you're playing Hurkyl, like this or Hurkyl's Recall, because Hurkyl's Recall means that you can have a way to not lose to them. If you're playing an affinity deck, it's proactive, but for 1 more mana, you get to make your strategy better and stop them from what they're doing.
Right.
But I think that the 1-turn difference makes a huge difference, so I think you would actually just play...
Yeah, I think it's more like, do you need the redundancy, and is it sometimes that card dead? Like, do you want to cycle a card?
Right.
And and I think that's the 2 pieces to really pay attention to. I love the art. I love that it's a bunch of, it's Bonesaw, Mock Sapphire, Paradise Mantle, and Spider Silk Net, which are all 0-cost artifacts.
Clever,
and then it's Geth's Ring for some reason, which is like a 3-mana artifact.
Ring of Gix.
Or Ring of Gix.
But I guess because it has Echo, so it's like, I'm going to punish that Echo artifact by bouncing it back to your hand or something.
Ring of Gix.
Yeah.
I think it's also interesting that because it has cycling, if the cycling deck becomes a thing, it's kind of a cool, like, get them against artifact-based decks that you can then cycle away if you don't need it.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's like a cycling hate card. Like, yeah, using it for the actual reason these cards are...
Because against, like, Affinity or Hardened Scales, making them pick up all their artifacts feels real strong.
Yeah.
Tribute Mage, 2 and a blue creature, human wizard. It is a 2/2. When Tribute Mage enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an artifact card with converted mana cost 2. Reveal that card, put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. It's holding a Sword of the Meek in the art because you're supposed to find Sword of the Meek.
It's cool.
Or Thopter Foundry.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the printing of this card gets you both halves of that combo, which is funny because at one time that combo was actually banned in Modern.
Right.
So not only is it not banned anymore, they printed us a card to literally get both halves of it.
They're celebrating it.
Yeah,
now.
they've printed that and Urza, who just single-handedly goes infinite with the combo in play. So, like, they want that combo to be a thing in Modern, and they put a lot of effort into making it happen.
It's cool that they've now printed 4 of these mages, which is fun. You have Trinket Mage that gets a 1-mana artifact, Tribute Mage that gets a 2. You have Trophy Mage that gets a 3-mana artifact, and you have
Treasure Mage
that gets a 6-mana artifact.
6 or more.
6 or plus.
So Trinket gets 1 or less, and Treasure gets 6 plus.
So we have an exact 2 and exact 3. So at a
we
certain
need a
point,
4 and a 5, hoping it's Thingamajig is one of those.
Well, so far they are all TR words too. So you're having to think. You're having to think
Trophy,
of it like
Tribute, Treasure, Trinket, Trapper Mage.
Yeah, because I was thinking like like before they printed this, I had thought it would be called Tchotchke Mage for the number 2.
Is it
yeah, it starts TCH.
nice.
What if it was called Trickster Mage and it came in, got a 4-mana artifact, and it had Flash?
But I think Trickster Mage is already a thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right.
We'll find out. That's cool.
This card is sweet.
Back to the card.
So situational tutors like this are some of my favorite effects that they print in Magic. I always love them. I've played these alongside Grand Architect before. Like there's like the Grand Architect plus Trophy Mage getting like a Worm Coil and being able to cast it quickly is like a thing that you used to do in Standard.
Sure.
So yeah.
Next is
just back up for 1 second. There is a 2-mana artifact in Modern.
Oh yeah.
It's a 5/6 creature. And
yeah, why is this guy not called Superior Mage?
Because
or Hypocrisite Mage?
We now live in the form
you have an affinity for 2 mana.
So many good ones.
2 mana forgotten artifact creatures.
What's the vanishing? I'm not gonna go down that road. Keep going.
Fact or fiction? 3 and a blue, instant, reveal the top 5 cards of your library. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles, put 1 pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard. We talked a little bit about this on our preview episode for Modern Horizons when we were going through cards leading into it. Well, first off, it's already seeing play. So multiple blue-white control decks were playing it as a 1-of, is one of the cards it was playing with. Now, that could have been just trying it out to see how it does over the weekend, and then they were successful with it as a 1-of, which is not significant. But it does a lot of powerful things. Like the fact that it puts into your graveyard is also always underlooked.
It's one of the huge parts of this card, yeah.
Sometimes if you're just playing it in Phoenix, you're just going to be like, I'm going to get, like, you have to, like, split the Phoenixes to screw me, but then, like, one of those piles is going to have Faithless Looting in it, and that's the one I'm going to put in my graveyard.
It's interesting that this card against Gifts Ungiven in Modern is, like, the Gifts Ungiven on turn 3 with a cost reducer as part of Storm is going to be better than this card because it's exactly what you want, as opposed to, like, if we didn't have Gifts Ungiven and this was printed in, that would absolutely slot into that part of Storm. This card is sweet. It's so funny how, like, Modern, the power level of Modern is such that they were like, all right, yeah, this card's fine. It's like five years ago in Modern, this would have been like a format staple, like, just, oh my goodness, this is so crazy.
Right.
And now it's like, we'll try to play 1 in our control deck, maybe.
Sure.
You know? It's sweet. It's exciting.
I think it'll just be a staple forever. It's great. And it's really fun. This is one of the most fun skill testing cards ever printed, I do think, or most fun cards ever printed, in the sense that the game of, I give you 5 cards, have to separate them into piles, thinking about what I have and what you have, and going through like that next level, and then I get to decide which one of those 2 piles I want, is like so great, and like kind of a great representation of what blue Magic should be about.
And my last point on this card that I think is cool, that I know you and I, especially Marshall, will relate to, there's this thing about the old classic Magic cards that were impactful in the old days, like in the pre-modern 2003 days, where we all played with Fact or Fiction a lot. We know cards like Fact or Fiction and Psychotog like very well because they're part of Magic's rich, deep history. But it's been around so long now. A lot of younger players have never played with those cards or ever heard of those cards that are these staple pieces of what Magic was about back in the day. And so it's fun to me that new players are now going to get to play with Fact or Fiction. And like, I'm going to play against that at a tournament one day. And someone's going to be like, Fact or Fiction. I'm going to have this moment of like, you're like 14 and like you weren't even alive when this card was printed. But like, I remember this card from Standard from way back. Like I think it's really cool.
All right, old man. Speaking of old man and cards that represent early Magic, Urza, Lord High Artificer. 2 blue, legendary creature, human artificer. When Urza, Lord High Artificer enters the battlefield, create a 1/0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token. With this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. That's the first ability. Tap an untapped artifact you control to add 1 blue. Second ability, then 5 mana, shuffle your library, then exile the top card. Until end of turn, you may play that card without paying its mana cost. It is a 1/4. So, ability by ability. First off, it draws you a card when it enters play, basically by creating that servo token. So even if they can kill this, you are going to have that artifact servo that's going to gain you some amount of value. That creature can also immediately tap for a blue mana when it's in play. allowing you to cast additional spells if you want. So it's really a 3 mana spell on its end. And then there's the main infinite combo that people have talked about is the one we already talked about with
Sword of the Meek,
which is Sword of the Meek and Thopter Foundry. And so the way it works is you have a 2 mana Sword of the Meek, which reads that if it's in your graveyard, if a 1/1 enters the battlefield, it enters the battlefield attached to that 1/1. And
from your graveyard.
From your graveyard. If you have Thopter Foundry in play, Thopter Foundry sacks an artifact for 1 mana to make a 1/1 and gain you a life. And so what it allows you to do is to sack the sword, making a 1/1. The sword will then see the 1/1 since it's in the graveyard already, attach it to itself. And so you can make as many 1/1 Thopters and gain as much life as you have mana with that combo in play. What Urza lets you do is tap the artifact or tap the equipment to then just go infinite. So every time you sacrifice the equipment, you can then do the loop again, gaining you infinite life and making infinite 1/1s. He can then tap those 1/1s that you're making to make infinite mana if you would like, instead of attacking, and then you can use that infinite mana to use his other ability, which
cast your entire deck.
To cast your entire deck.
The humor here
and
is,
then you can cast a Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, activate his +1 and win the game.
Yeah.
The humor of the Go Infinite plan is that the card. So this card was basically printed to represent all things that are me. It's like, I mean, this card, like, it's, if you actually were to like
grandest architect,
like it was funny when they printed it. I like laughed for a good 10 minutes because we had previewed the card that represents me, literally with my name. And I was like, oh man, there's not going to be a Ben card in this set. And then literally they printed Ben the card, which is Erda. And like, to the extent that like 5 years ago when we started this podcast or early on, I created like an amalgamation of our 2 favorite cards as like cards that exist. And mine was like Vengevine and Geist of Saint Traft smushed together. And then yours was
something Grand
Architect with Spellskite. But like half of the abilities are on this card.
No, it was like a 4 mana blue card. Like it's like literally. So the humor here is that the Thopter Foundry combo actually goes infinite with Grand Architect anyway already. It's just because the tokens are blue and then they could be tapped to create colorless mana.
Sure.
That's existed this entire time and like is already pretty good. Like the fact that like we didn't just do that anyway because it's like win more.
Right. I think the thing is that like the problem with Grand Architect has always been it can go infinite with mana, but what do you do with that mana? Like there's always like, oh, I have to find another way to get some weird X spell or some weird thing, or sometimes I'll just make a big dirtily creature.
Right.
And then you're playing like a 3-card combo deck that like uses mediocre cards or like harder to tutor for cards than say the Malira combo decks.
Right.
And all those cards are not as aggressive as those cards. This lets you just win. Like it comes with the X spell you've always needed in Grand Architect decks, and you now have multiples of Grand Architect. That was the other issue, is that it was not really redundant. This gives you that redundancy.
I mean, there's a lot of things about this card that take the Grand Architect strategy. I mean, truth be told, guys, probably the first deck that I will brew and talk about on my stream is this. Like, I probably will build some weird Grand Architect Urza deck that is not the better one that everyone's going to build, but probably some dumb version that I want to build.
And the other thing that's cool about this is Grand Architect, you can only spend the mana on artifacts, correct?
Yeah, correct.
So that was always the other big limiting factor. This is just blue mana that I can do on anything. So like that allows you to do a little bit more, I think, powerful things than what Grand Architect was able to do, because you can now obviously use his activate ability, but cast to Tezzeret on the turn after you play this to find the pieces you need. Like, and that only costs X amount of mana.
This card should be a good indicator of how powerful Modern as a format is and why this set exists, because you couldn't print this into Standard, but you can push the power level of a 4-drop in Modern so hard now, and they know that, that they can print this card to be legal in a powered format. Like, this is not going to break the format. This is a good card. It will be less good than 7 of the cards in this set already in competitive decks.
Sure.
But it's awesome. I can't wait to brew with it.
They also can't print it because ours is dead.
It's fair.
Well, and the alternate
he's dead, but his spirit lives on inside Karn.
And inside me.
Oh, one quick card that you did skip over, but I think bears mentioning, is Choking Tethers, which is an important reprint if Astral Drift becomes a deck. 3 and a blue, instant. Tap up to 4 target creatures. It has cycling 1 and a blue. When you cycle Choking Tethers, you may tap target creature.
Got it.
So it's ice as a card.
Sure.
That can also just tap out your opponent's board. But the important thing is blue-based Astral slide decks back in the day played 4 of Choking Tethers because it lets you tap and blink.
And it keeps them down for the turn you need so you can get later in the game to be able to get your things into play. So it's a good stall. Okay, yeah. Next is Future Sight, 2 blue, 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 blue. So it's 3 blue, 2 mana. Enchantment, play with the top card of your library revealed. You may play the top card of your library.
I think we can spend only a minute on this card because it's very good. I totally understand why it's here. If you have a deck like the red, like plays like the red card that's being played in Affinity now, where you play the top
Frenzy.
card, Experimental Frenzy. If you can just like the top card of your library go nuts, it's a combo piece. It's also a good card for just like blue decks to have. It's powerful. There's a lot of things that are powerful now that draw you a lot of cards.
The difference here in those, there's two places. One is Eggs decks, and the other is Storm decks. And then there's even the Egg Storm decks that wins with Aether Flux Reservoir that can take advantage of this, that just kind of go off from the top if this comes into play. Gavin wrote a good article, and I think that's where we probably recommend people go, kind of discussing, like, don't sleep on this card. He's the one that previewed it, and he walked through a few different ways that it's very powerful in Modern. This card is probably a card that I think people are underrating. Echo of the Eons, 4 blue, just the dopest art. Sorcery, Mythic. Each player shuffles their hand and graveyard into their library, then draws 7 cards. Flashback, 2 blue. When you flashback this card, it is a power 9 spell.
Flashback this card, it's Time Twister.
Yeah.
Why is this card being slept on?
I guess it's sorcery.
What's going on with this?
It's going down. It was at 25, I think, and then it's just slowly going down. I think partially because Narset is better with Puzzle Box, and that's what people were on, and this just needs a home for it. I think it'll see play, though. I think this is a real card. I just don't know if it's going to... Yeah.
It's powerful. It's just funny because, like, you would think this would be insane. It's just...
I think, I guess maybe like Storm decks already don't want to kind of get rid of their graveyard.
Right.
Like, and that's a deck that immediately wants this. I think this will see play. A lot of the times, just the spells right now in Modern decks that want this type of effect want it more as a Wheel of Time, where you get to keep your graveyard. And the fact that you have to shuffle it in has its ramifications. But like, Narset exists. Like, there's already, I know there's a Narset, what's the 3-mana other one? The one that ends the turn?
Days Undoing.
Yeah, there's a Days Undoing Narset deck, and I think this is seeing play in that deck already. So, like, it's going to do stuff. It's just, is that deck going to be better than Tier 2?
Yep.
Windcaller Aven, 4 blue. Bird Wizard Flying Cycling blue. When you cycle Aven, Windcaller Aven, target creature gains flying until end of turn. It's a 4/3. The only reason this is relevant is 1 blue cycling creatures all see play in the mono blue living index.
Yeah, with as foretold, this will slot in.
Flying 4/3 for that deck is exactly what it wants.
It's great. Yeah,
it'll just see play in that deck. It needs more of these effects. And that is it for blue.
Cool.
What's your thoughts on blue?
Blue's great. Blue's heavy. Blue's stacked in this set.
All right. Quickly going through this, Cabal Therapist. We're in the black.
We've talked about this card quite a bit already because it was the first preview, the Sincera.
Art's great. I would say go listen to our episode of First Going Modern Horizons, since we have to go through things quickly.
Yeah, card's fine. It's really powerful. It's got cool abilities. It doesn't blow my mind.
I think this card is better than people are giving it credit for, and we'll see play in Modern. I just think it'll just be a small role player that different decks play once in a while.
Yeah,
I think they were wrong on the preview that this is in the top 10.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's not that good. It's good.
It's weird that this was there. They were like, this is our power card we're going to preview, when I don't think it's one of the power. If anything, I think Sarah feels just as powerful as this card does.
Easily. Yeah. Sarah's great.
I think that they wanted to show that this set was going to be more of like showing you old stuff that we haven't done before and twists on old cards, not necessarily like we're going to print Force of Will into this set. And that was what they were trying to represent with it. Yeah. And
they needed a 1 CMC card that represented
that better in that announcement. But next card, this is a card we've asked to be in Modern more than I think any other card, other than maybe like the Baleful Strix.
Right.
Is Carrion Feeder. Black zombie, 1 black mana, zombie creature. Carrion Feeder can't block. Sacrifice a creature, put a +1/+1 counter on Carrion Feeder, 1/1. This is already a 4 of in the best deck in the format. That's being the Hogak deck. It's really good.
I mean, yeah.
Maybe not the best deck in the format, but currently the big front leader and currently doing very well.
This in Dredgevine. This card, so there's a couple things that make this card really good. The first one is it is what Viscera Seer has been doing forever, but just a little better in a lot of ways.
It's worse at finding combo pieces, but better at just being a threat.
Yep.
Otherwise, like you can play, like Viscera Seer, you'd always only play 1 of, because you don't really want to draw it until you're comboing off. I want 4 Carrion Feeder in every deck I'm going to play it in.
Yep.
It's a zombie.
It's a zombie. That's where, like, so you take the card, like, I've always wanted to make Relentless Dead work. Like, I love that card. I've always thought that card was so cool. And I was always just like, it's just not quite there. This makes Relentless Dead infinitely better. Immediately. Like, so much better.
Well, and if you look at the Hogak decks, like, something that Vengevine has wanted, excluding the Hogak combo, is being able to get Gravecrawler back into play off of a 1-drop, and there hasn't been that many good zombie 1-drops. You're always kind of just like, oh, I have to play these war zombies. You'd play that Unearth one that you can unearth for 1 black mana to get it back. This lets you play a totally great black zombie 1-drop that you can then cast Gravecrawler from your graveyard in to put into play, and then it lets you then do the sacrifice engine stuff that it's doing right now, and which is why the Hogak deck is going so well.
At the very least, just on turn 2, you just play this card on turn 1. Okay, I don't have a 2-drop, so I'll just play Gravecrawler, sack it, replay it, attack for 2. Yeah. It just sets up so well to just be aggressive and good.
And you have the new black zombie we'll talk about in a second. That's black. You draw a card every time a zombie dies. And then you get into aristocrat strategies, which we haven't even touched on, which is just like taking advantage of lingering souls and death triggers and blood artist. I lost, at least for some reason, I got paired against the same deck that has not seen play beyond this GP twice. 12 blood artist deck that was Cocoing into blood artist and Viscerous Ears, and you just eventually couldn't win because they could just sack everything and you die. And this deck, that slides right into that type of deck.
Yeah, he's the best 1-drop free sack outlet ever printed. And now it's in Modern.
Right. But next card is Defile. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each swamp you control instant. I don't think this is better than other options as far as removal spells go. The mono black decks do need more things to do, and this does get rid of a lot of things that Fatal Push has trouble with.
Yeah, I mean, you look at cards that are in that 1-mana conversation, like Ulcerate, that have been printed over the years, and they're always right there, and people like them, but not quite. There's the Exile one from the last set. It's fine. It'll see play, but probably less like a one of in people's experimental decks.
I think it'll see more play than Isolate.
Yeah, that's fair. Next up, one of my favorite cards of all time.
1 black for a sorcery named Unearth. Return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, cycling 2. We said at the beginning of this podcast, there are already decks taking advantage of this. The Death Shadows decks are already playing 2 of these. This card's just really good.
It's reminiscent of Claim Fame, which is a preview card. I had talked a lot about Unearth over the years, so when they gave us Claim Fame, it was exciting. Unearth gets back Mir Superior from the graveyard.
That's true. Which the one relevant thing there, I don't. Mir Superior being a 5/6 is now outclassed by other things, but the fact that you have 8 Unearth effects in the format for 2-drops or below is also a thing to talk towards, where you can start now planning to guarantee you have this card, and so taking advantage of that with other cards.
There's an Unearth, Vexing Devil, Claim Fame, Young Pyromancer kind of deck that I think you can just play.
Sure.
That's sweet.
Dreadhorde Arcanist. We've already talked about how good Claim Fame is with Dreadhorde Arcanist.
That sounds really fun. Just that in general as a deck sounds really fun.
I'm not even sure we're going to be... We might not... Well, I think I added it, but Skelemental or whatever, which is the new ball lightning discard thing. Just unearthing that a few times seems really scary.
You can unearth a Snapcaster Mage. There's lots of relevant...
Unearth Snapcaster Mage is one of my all-time favorite plays, where you unearth Snap, targeting Unearth, getting something back. That's super dope.
Yeah. There's so many cool things to do with this card. We'll be finding different cool stuff to do with it.
And there's all these Abzan based graveyard decks. So being able to unearth your Kitchen Finks or unearth your Knight of Honor, Autumn, unearth Devoted Druid or the Vizier. There's just so many combo based creatures that being able to run backup for them is so great.
And it cycles.
It's 1 black.
You add cycling to a card, it increases the value on this podcast by 20% at least.
Yep, absolutely.
It increases the value on this podcast.
We could go on for hours, but we don't have them. So we'll be talking about this card for the indefinite future.
Yes.
Cordial Vampire, black vampire. When Cordial Vampire or another creature dies, put a +1/+1 counter on each vampire you control. So we talked about zombies getting a lot of tribal. This is the only tribal card for vampires. Vampires has also been kind of close to being playable. It's never got quite there. It's never better than the other tribal decks that are out there. But they now have 3 black lords.
I mean, think about for a second. Think about for a second. 1-drop creature. I'm trying to think of the best 1-drop vampire, but
Viscerous Ears.
Or the one that you can sack a vampire to put +1/+1 counters on each creature you control.
Right, that guy. Or you could
also the 2/2 that deals 1 damage to you if your opponent.
And there's a ton of 1-drop.
And there's the Madness. There's the Madness vampire, the 2/1 red. 1-drop vampire, 2-drop good vampire, the Lord or one of them. This guy and Fatal Push on turn 3. Kill your creature, buff my team. Because it's when you kill any creature, right?
Oh, it's any creature.
You kill their guy
creatures.
and you lord your board.
Some people have been talking about this guy in Aristocrats deck because like Blood Artist is
you can do a vampire aristocrat situation that's just not even...
Cruel Celebrant is also a vampire. So.
I mean, imagine playing this guy on turn 2, another of this guy on turn 3 with a Fatal Push, and your 1-drop, kill your guy, swing for $1 billion. Seems dope.
Yep. Into it.
You're looking at a sliver here. Drag Sliver is our next card, and I think something to talk about we can lead this into our slivers conversation. So we've seen what happens now with humans, right? Like humans is a deck that works because the power level of going wide and making all your guys bigger works, but also because you have so many cards that affect the board and affect your opponent. Same case you said for spirits, same case you said for merfolk. That's why those as tribes in general have worked so well, is that they each are interactive, as well as, the one that goes the biggest, that makes your creatures the biggest, is merfolk, because it has the most of that lord effect. Right? But the others are kind of interactive. The problem so far we have with vampires and zombies is that they're really good at being recursive and making a lot of guys, but they don't counter spells and they don't like bounce things to your opponent's hand.
So for any of these tribal decks, what you really need to be doing is looking at what does this do differently than the ones that exist. Spirits is way more evasive than humans and is more interacts on the end of their turn, so it has different matchups that it's better against. Humans is way better at stopping your opponents from doing things and creating very large threats. Merfolk is a much more it has kind of fallen by the wayside, but they do get beefier and
very aggressive.
And they have the ability to kind of become unblockable depending on islands. The fourth one we mentioned, the fourth most, is elves, and elves is more of a combo deck that's going infinite,
and it goes wide.
It's less about attacking and just kind of attacks, but more about just making as much mana as possible. So with vampires, it's the aristocrats angle or the madness angle are like the two, and always that's kind of every time I've tried building it where it's always fallen by the wayside is like,
what do you do with it?
Half of it wants to be madness, half of it wants to be aristocrats, and it can't really decide which one of those is better. And zombies just didn't have the support yet. And I think now it's gotten that with Carrion Feeder and the zombie we'll talk about next, I think. But with Slivers, which is the next tribe. So Slivers did top 8 once. That once the humans deck came out, there was someone that kind of took that same shell of 5-color land creature deck that was able to kind of do the thing with Slivers and fallen by the wayside compared to these other decks like Spirits. But now they've gotten a huge influx. And there's a lot of cards in here. Most of them are pretty medium, but one piece that it did get, and you guys tried cutting Slivers before this podcast started, and I brought it back, is that there's a combo with it. So then the big piece that really helps it, and what I think Slivers does that other ones does, is versatility. It has so many different, every effect under the sun that Wizards can come up with, a Sliver can do. So the question is does that Sliver help you accomplish your goal, be it make mana, be it pump your team?
Right.
And the one that we're about to talk about, once my phone, is Dredgescape Sliver. So that's black and 1 Sliver. Each Sliver creature card in your graveyard has Unearth 2, and it has Unearth 2 itself. It's a 2/2. And what's important about this card is they printed 3 cards, or they printed 2 cards in this set. It's this one, and then there's the red-white one that when a Sliver enters the battlefield, you
haste and flying. The drain game one.
The drain game one. So
Lava Belly.
Lava Belly Sliver. So you do 1 damage, and then you gain 1 damage. And then in Time Spiral block, there was the Sliver that you can slack all Slivers you have sack this, make 2 black mana.
Basil Sliver, I think it's called.
Or Basalt.
Basalt. B-A-S-A-L.
And with those 3 cards, with this Unearth one and those 2, you have like a little mini combo built into now this Sliver deck that with the Flying Haste one, with the Pump one, with the Make Mana one, you can go just be very aggressive with. And then if they eventually stabilize or be able to stop you, you play this Unearth guy and you can get all those Slivers back.
Unearth 1 at a time, your entire board.
And then start just doing damage to them. Just combo them out with the damage that you're dealing.
Machine gun.
Speed.
Yeah.
Or they'll all have haste. Like there's so many different pieces of that now that it's now this cool inevitability engine that the Sliver deck eventually gets to.
They printed enough cool Slivers at 2, which is important.
Yeah.
Rather than 3. The 3 mana ones, like you have to have a certain level of quality. Like you have to be Sedge Sliver or one of those ones that's like a special Lord regenerate. Like that's what that one does.
Sure.
The 2 mana ones are the ones that really make the deck, and they printed a few, specifically the Flying and Haste one and the Unearth one.
Yeah, those 2 I think are definitely the strongest and most important ones they printed. Though you do have the sideboard options. So
right, you have lots of ways to interact.
The green-white one is the one that's the one that I like to point out the most. I don't know how Harmonic Sliver.
Oh, yeah, the naturalized Sliver.
Yeah, just because it also, if you have 2 in play, it starts doing like
double effect
silly things where like every Sliver you add like multiplies because they have both of that effect twice.
Right.
So Undead Augur, black, zombie wizard. Whenever Undead Augur or another zombie you control dies, you draw a card and you lose 1 life, 2/2. we've kind of talked about why this is relevant.
Yeah, it's got, I mean, this gives you an extra angle in the zombie deck that allows you to generate card advantage and combo out if you have like a sack outlet to just like start rifling through your deck, and draw a lot of cards. If you lose 9 life in the process, who cares? You'll probably win. Like, it's a 2/2 for 2 that does that, and it's a zombie. There's enough pieces in zombies and vampires now that I expect we'll start to see some top 8, top 16 tribal decks show up here and there.
Yeah, I think it'll be like in modern challenges or dailies, we're going to start seeing some more of those 2 decks. The next card is, I think, the first card we're going to talk about that is really a new Sultai deck that's kind of started coming around, and that's Dead of Winter. It's 2 and a black sorcery. All non-snow creatures get -X until end of turn, where X is the number of snow permanents you control. With this set, and snow's push between this and the Flying Coatl, what's it called?
Icefang
Coatl. Sultai has started seeing a lot more pros paying attention to it and posting lists and trying it out. And I think this is obviously a really powerful effect. Just, anything over 2 snow permanents, is it lands or permanents? All non-permanents. So anything over 2, you start gaining huge value off of. Like, I've played 3 black, do -2/-2 to all creatures. Like, that's a card that has seen play in Modern. It's a pretty medium one. But then as soon as you add another one, this becomes Anger of the Gods. And as soon as you add another one, this is like, you can cast this at -4/-4, and then your Gurmag Angler survives.
Yeah.
Or you can make it a one-sided board wipe.
And it's also relevant that it says all non-snow. So if you're playing the snow deck, and we talked about Icefang Coatl, but I think there's a couple other snow creatures which could see play. It's a mini Plague Wind.
Mm-hmm. Now, did the old creatures from Cold Snap, the ones that were playable, are they snow creatures?
Some of them are. Like Oron Viper's a snow creature.
It's a snow creature? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Huh. Is Boreal Druid a snow creature?
It is.
It is.
And it taps to make snow mana.
Boreal does?
Well, it's a snow creature and it taps to make colorless.
Yeah.
So the colorless it makes is 1 colorless snow mana.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
I didn't know that either. Next card, Mind Rake. 2 and a black, sorcery. Target player discards 2 cards. You can overload it for 1 black. So that means you discard 2 cards and they discard 2 cards. The main place I've seen, and I don't know much about how 8 rack or 12 rack or 16 rack decks play now. But this apparently is sliding right in. It's just better
2
than
mana
other
parallel
that they have.
2 mana parallel discard is fine. Like it's got the Mind Rot effect, but you can, for 2 mana. People play Liliana and they plus it and you both discard, you're fine with it. You're happy with it. Now you get a Planeswalker out of it, but this also plays for 2 mana. So
yeah, I saw some people talking about this in if Hollow One still exists, like this is sort of like a Burning Inquiry in black, but it's the half that you want, which is the discard. So
Nether Spirit, black, colorless creature spirit, 2/2. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Nether Spirit is the only creature card in your graveyard, you may return Nether Spirit to the battlefield. For the record, it's just you get, if there's 2 Nether Spirits, you don't get either of them. It's not just because it's its name. It's referring to itself, the card. I played this in Legacy. I played this. This was one of my main 2 threats in Pox, along with Curse Scroll.
Right.
Which is on the reserve list, so not in here. But it's a very grindy, recursive threat that's very hard to get rid of. I think in Modern, it's probably not as good as it is in Legacy, partially just because people are playing main deck Surgical Extractions. And even in Legacy, it's like medium. But it is a card that has seen play throughout Magic's history, so it's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I mean, this is from Arcadian Masks. I remember playing this card originally a little bit. It doesn't feel like the power level is where we need it to be, but it's cool. It's a cool effect.
I think it's just something that, like, if you are playing a deck that's playing like 4 Damnations and a bunch of ways to discard your opponent's hands, and you want stuff out of your hands to discard, like with Mind Rake, this is a card that can take advantage of those discards and then be a threat for you. But yeah, I agree. Next card, I think we'll see a ton of play, especially depending on how much of the decks we just talked about see play. It's Plague Engineer, 2 and a black. Creature Carrier, Death Touch. As Plague Engineer enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures of the chosen type your opponents control get -1/-1.
I mean, this against elves is really good. This against spirits is really quite good. This against humans is okay. It's pretty good against humans. There's not as many 1/1s. You kill like a hierarch and you kill it.
Remember that most of the lords and humans now also are, when they enter the battlefield, give everything +1/+1 counters. So this
Thalia's Lieutenant.
Yeah, Thalia's Lieutenant. So this cuts them on the front end. It also kills Thalia. Like, that's a big game.
That's a huge one. Yeah,
it kills Noble Hierarch. It kills the 1 mana one that gets bigger over time if you get it in before it comes into play.
But where this is less good against humans is that because of the counters, if they have put counters on their other X1s at that point, then this comes down and doesn't kill the creatures.
But it kills their other creatures, and there's a 2/2 death touch. Yeah, it can then block.
I mean, I'm by no means saying this is not good because I think it's very good.
And if goblins becomes a thing,
eats goblins, eats Murpha. It hurts slivers a lot. Like there's a lot of slivers out there that are X1s, destroys fairies. Yeah, zombies, vampires, all those vampires we mentioned.
Really good against fairies. And fairies is one of the best places.
It's notable that obviously this is a reference to Engineering Plague, which I think they probably just thought would be too strong. There needs Engineering Plague's harder to remove than a creature.
This is both better and worse at the same time because it can attack. It's a threat. Like it's a better sideboard card, but it's worse in the sense that the decks will be able to get around this. It's less of a lockout, but it is better in general.
I love that the creature type is carrier.
Yeah, it's a nice callback to Urza block. And the other notable thing is Engineering Plague affected all creatures. This affects creatures your opponent controls. Mm-hmm. So you can play this in the sideboard of a zombie deck or something like that. And even against, The
art's pretty cool too.
One of Modern's great limitations is its 15-card sideboard, right? Like so often you will sacrifice power level against specific strategies for versatility against multiple strategies, and this is a great card for that, where like we've talked about those, but like putting this against a deck that just is playing Lingering Souls and you just need a better answer to Lingering Souls than you have, and just naming spirits, even if that's the only spirit in their deck, is still a good game for this card. I would play 3 mana to get rid of every Lingering Souls you cast for the rest of the game, and then eventually I trade with your Tarmogoyf for whatever you're playing.
Some other stuff too, like
Thopters. It shuts down the Thopters combo.
Yeah.
Playing this and naming Oof, killing their Finks, it comes back, dies.
Right. Like that, like this can act as just a 3 mana 2/2 death touch that kills target creature with 1 toughness. Like
and it makes just like a lot of creatures just can't come into play.
Right.
Which is real significant.
Shatter Assumption, 1 black sorcery, choose 1. Target opponent reveals their hand and discards all colorless non-land cards. Target opponent reveals their hand and discards all multicolor cards. This is a Tron sideboard for black if they need it. And it's the main thing I would point at, where it's...
I mean, playing this against Tron, like... It seems like a major...
Yeah, I think it's good against them.
I mean, 4 for 1 Tron.
Like, and mono black or black decks that don't have better access to Tron hate need it. So I think this will see play as if you are in need of a way to stop Tron, this is a thing that will help you do so. Also weirdly good against the Niv Mizzet modern decks that started popping up.
Which the 5-color ones?
The 5-color ones.
That's funny, yeah.
Oh, wow,
just like weirdly get wrecked.
And then again, you're talking about the versatility. Like, it's a sideboard card that you have there against maybe some artifact decks and definitely against Karn, but randomly like, this just happens to be good against Niv Mizzet.
Right. Endling 2 black, zombie shapeshifter, 1 black, Endling gains menace until end of turn, 1 black, Endling gains death touch until end of turn, 1 black, it gains undying until end of turn, which means that if it dies, it comes back into play with a +1/+1 counter, as long as it doesn't already have a +1/+1 counter on it. And then for 1 colorless mana, you can give it +1/-1 or -1/+1 until end of turn. It is a 3/3. It is the 5th in the cycle of the Lings.
The original is Morphling from Urza's Saga or Legacy? Saga, right? And that was the control finisher of choice back in the day. I mean, so people don't remember this, but like in terms of Magic that you're remembering that's powerful, that was back from like 1998, and it was like the card. Now they didn't print another one for years. It was Torchling. It was the red one in Planar Chaos. None of them have really actually been that impactful. There was Thornling, I think, from like one of the Alara sets. There was Brightling
from last year in Battle Bond.
Well, Brightling is super sweet, by the way. That card's great.
So this is the end of the longest time to finish a cycle in Magic history, starting with Morphling and then ending here. There's a years there that I don't remember, but it is the longest time. Morphling was the best creature of Magic. Aetherling, which I keep saying was a revamp of it that was in
Dragon's Maze, maybe, or
it was in that set, in that block.
One of those.
Return to Ravnica block, and it was a very powerful force in Standard. Thornling came out, didn't do anything. Thornling was the first Mythic card I ever opened. Yeah. So excited the cycle is finally complete. But yeah, the black one's completed. I will say that it's cool that there are multiple cards in this set that are the best creature of Magic, but aren't in added modern. So the Ifrit. Was the best creature of Magic at one point.
At one point, for sure.
There's a
Sarah's Angel
Jin in red now.
Yeah, there's a Dozen Jin in red. Sarah Angel on the new Sarah was the best creature of Magic at one point. Morphling was the best creature of Magic.
Pretty cool. I hadn't realized that.
Yeah, I didn't realize until we just started talking about this and going through the review. But I was like, oh yeah, there's like isn't there like a crawl worm? There's the one mana green spell that we'll talk about that
turns everything into crawl worms.
Turns everything into crawl worm. Best creature. So many people got ripped off when they're dueling.
Where's our Shivan Dragon? That's the question.
Sling Gang Lieutenant, 3 and a black. Creature goblin. When Sling Gang Lieutenant enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. Sacrifice a goblin. Target player loses 1 life and gains 1 life. The reason this is relevant is that top end of a goblin deck, or especially the Fecundity deck that's looking for goblin sack outlets, this is very good. It's a win condition. That deck needs a win condition. It often just trying like to storm off and shenanigans, and this lets it just sack all those goblin tokens.
Yeah, it has a way to use your tokens to do something sweet.
Right. And then on its own, it's like 4 mana to get 3 power into play that like is hard to deal with because they have the sack ability is like not under rate. Like I was already playing Mom and Dad.
Pia and Kieran Nalar.
Yeah, right. They've pushed 4 over the years in Magic a lot. So for Modern, there's a possibility that having something that allows you to use your goblins to win. Otherwise, it's pretty.
It's a step down in power level in every deck that is not taking advantage of the goblin creature type. But in goblins, I think this is the best reason in black because we didn't see any other ones to play goblins and add black to it. And in the Fecundity deck specifically, which are another preview card of ours, which was what's the goblin? Sacks creature. Gets a Skirt Prospector. Combos in that deck. So that deck, definitely look at that episode to see what the Fecundity deck does. Fecundity lets you sacrifice a creature to draw a card. That combos with this very well. It's another piece of that deck, and I think that's where it's relevant.
And this is the funniest art that's been printed in Magic in a long time. The goblin sitting in the slingshot. It just kills me, the expression on his face.
He's so excited. He's got like a machete.
And the flavor text, this flavor text writer deserves several high fives.
Freshly promoted to first rock, Zaz was eager to make an impact. It's really good.
I saw this card previewed and I just died laughing. Everything about it is amazing.
All right, next card, Smiting Helix. 3 and a black, sorcery. Smiting Helix deals 3 damage to any target and you gain 3 life. You may flashback it for 1 red, 1 white. So
that's what you're using this card for. That you put it in your graveyard and you flash it back as a weird reverse or a different colored helix, or it's a properly colored.
I've definitely historically been looking for very powerful cards to have in my graveyard. This is a very powerful card to have in your graveyard. The front half is definitely below rate. I like that they have kind of, Wizards has always said that the funny thing about Lightning Helix is that it's technically a black card, but because red and white can both do that, it makes it a red, white, gold card.
Yeah.
And it's like their perfect example of how 2 cards can make the color of 1 color by working together. The other modern wise, there's obviously those, and there's all of the like Bedlam Reveler decks and the Mardu decks that could take advantage of this, especially because those decks also don't hate flashback cards that give them double triggers. So you can if you draw this late game and you have anything in your play that either wants you to, like, you have a Young Pyromancer or a Bedlam Reveler.
2 spells.
It's 2 spells.
And it's a big swing. If you cast this twice, it ends the game.
Yeah. 6 damage, gain 6 life. Your Bedlam Reveler gets +2/+2, and your Young Pyromancer makes 2 1/1 tokens is like...
And it's any target. So if you play this twice, it's 6 damage. You can take out a lot of really big creatures.
Right.
You can kill their angler. You can do all kinds of cool stuff.
Like, I think you want Faithless Looting with this card, and this is a card like Faithless Looting this and Lingering Souls just all together is a lot.
That is just the Mardu deck. That's
right.
the Pyromancer deck.
So I think it cycles in there. The other place people have been talking about it is in Dredge. It's just like your fifth
Creeping Chill.
Copying of Creeping Chill. It gives you a little bit more reach. Casting this for red and a white is like really easy in that deck.
Yep.
Definitely another place you could see play. And this is the last card. And we did the 2 oldest characters I think shown in the set. We got Yawgmoth, Thran Physician, 2 black, legendary creature, human cleric, protection from humans. Suck it, humans. Pay 1 life, sacrifice another creature, put a -1/-1 counter on up to 1 target creature, and draw a card. You may play black, discard a card, proliferate. It's a 2/4. Art is amazing and very funny because he's like very weirdly attractive and has this so if you look at the original, the only Yawgmoth art that's out there of him like as a person, not as a big wall thing as seen in the Yawgmoth's Bargain in Dominaria, is this weird guidebook of characters, and his whole armor, cape, and look is like identical to what that character looks like, but that character is like sinewy and ugly and Phyrexian or whatever. He also, his belt loop has the Phyrexian symbol as his belt loop. So there's a lot of little symbols everywhere.
I love that his chest armor looks like exposed ribs.
Yeah, and that's what and if you see his art other places, that's like a thing that is on his art is like this exposed ribbed chest plate.
He's handsome. What can I say?
Yeah.
Well, that's a real striking thing in the Thran. Like it, you know, the Magic books have been relatively not great, but if you read the Thran, which was the Magic's oldest history book, it is a really entertaining read, and Yawgmoth's the main character of it. It's like the story of his corruption, his fall from grace, or he's one of the main characters in it. And yeah, he's described as this like handsome young doctor. It's basically the reason he was a doctor of medical science in a world that used magic for healing until they came across a disease that magic couldn't heal. That's the plot of the Thran.
It's Phyrexian.
Turns out it's the Tysus.
Yeah.
So speaking of this card in the set for the actual set we're talking about, Perfection from Humans. I don't know that this. I mean, maybe this is a sideboard card in certain decks against humans.
Remember, the sack outlet on the top end that just kills creatures and draws cards when you sack things is, I think, the real reason you're talking about it. As a top end to an Aristocrats deck, it's like pretty strong there. Like in the deck we were just talking about, this does a lot of what that deck wants. You want a discard outlet to discard your Smiting Helixes and your Lingering Souls, to be able to flash it back for 2 mana. So you have the discard outlet that proliferates, so you kind of can draw a card off of it if you play that correctly. And then the fact that it can kill creatures and then slowly eat them to death. Like, it does a lot. I think it's worse than Urza.
It's definitely worse than Urza. I mean, Urza's just set up to be powerful.
I think the big thing is it comes into play and you have a sack outlet that is a creature removal spell that also draws you cards, and the only cost is life payment, and you can take advantage of that pretty easily.
And I also, a lot of people have noted that this guy plus Geralf's Messenger starts creating a really strong loop, because the Geralf's Messenger, you can sacrifice, you can put the -1/-1 counter on anything you want. You get to draw a card, Geralf's Messenger undies back with a -1/-1 counter, and now you can sack a different creature to target Geralf's Messenger to remove its undying counter, rinse, repeat.
Well, can't you just... Because don't you sacrifice it and then on the trigger?
You have to declare targets when you so he won't be in play.
Need 2 Geralf's Messengers to go off.
You can either have 2 Geralf's Messengers or anything like Genesis Chamber, anything that makes a creature when a creature dies, or any of these creatures like Pawn of Ulamog that makes a token when a creature dies.
Sure.
Like any of those things that somehow creates value. A creature when a creature dies or enters the battlefield can allow you to infinitely kill your opponent right then and there.
Cool.
But you don't even have to infinitely kill them, as I pointed out, because Geralf's Messenger is hitting them for 2 life every turn. So if you can just do this a few times, you kill them.
Cool.
So that is going to wrap up our review of White, Blue, and Black. We've also done the Force Cycle. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment to the YouTube channel. Leave a rating or review on iTunes if you happen to be listening to this or any of the places that you download your podcasts. And as we mentioned before, please check out patreon.com/the MMCast.
And we'll be doing live shows, like multiple live shows. If you're at GP Seattle, make sure to check them out. On Saturday, we're doing a live show, and then I'm guesting on at Tappy Toe Claw's own game show that she's doing on Sunday. So it'll be really blasting. We hope to see you guys there slinging spells and playing.
Yeah, come check it out. And we'll also be in Vegas doing a Highlander Gauntlet tournament with Channel Fireball, which we're really excited about. So come out to Vegas, come out to Seattle. We'll see you guys soon. Thanks, Marshall. Thanks to everybody listening and watching. Bye, guys.
Thank you for your attention. See you later, alligator.
This has been a production of Time Traveler Media, sending podcasts into the future.